Are you a professional pillow fighter? Or a 9-to-5 low-cost time travel agent? Or maybe real estate sales on Mars is your profession? It doesn't matter. Whatever it is you do, however complex or intricate, Monday.com can help you organize, orchestrate, and make it more efficient. Monday.com is the one centralized platform for everything work-related. And with Monday.com, work is just easier. Monday.com, for whatever you run. Go to Monday.com to learn more.
Well, I don't see the point in waiting any longer, so let's bring her out. The star attraction, the one you came to see. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Miss Judy Gold.
What you did stand up for 13 years, and then you got this job as a writer at Letterman. How did that come about?
I submitted 5 times between the years 1984 and 1989. And, you know, show business, if they don't want you, they won't be in touch.
Right.
If they want you, they get a hold of you.
Right.
So nothing. And then I took a year off. And then in 1991, I was at the Friars with Friars.
Oh, sorry.
And then I was with and
see, it's a big thing.
And I see Bob Morton, who used to come to the club. And I was trying to get on I was trying to get on the show as a comic.
He's a real estate agent now.
Yes.
What? Yes.
Yes. He and if you know,
does he even have to work?
Yeah. What?
Well,
it's crazy.
Let me just say, having an exclusive on a 4-bed, 4-bathroom in the Valley, if you think that's work, then you just don't know the trade. He's at the Friars. I walk up to him and I say to him, "Are you looking for anybody?" And he says, "No, we're not looking for anybody." He says, "But you know what? Because I used to write full submissions for the show." He said, "Just write jokes." He's always looking for jokes. And I thought that was odd because his monologue at NBC was 3 jokes, and it was, he would do a monologue like he had to do it like it was part of his contract. It was just so offhand.
Right.
It was so conversational. You didn't believe that they were actually jokes being submitted. So I started submitting jokes. I did it for like a week. And on the Thursday of that week, and back then he only did 3 jokes. He did one of my jokes, and the joke was, this is 1991, and the joke was, well, Elizabeth Taylor and her new husband, Larry Fortensky, had their first fight. It was over whether or not he should unpack.
That's a great joke.
Yeah, good joke, yeah.
And
then he did one the next night, and so Morton calls me. Now, you remember, Morton never called anybody back.
Right.
Never called anybody back. Mike Reynolds used to say for Halloween, he was going to dress completely in black and cover his face and go as a Bob Morton return phone call. Yes. And so...
Oh, that's so funny.
Isn't that great? And so he calls me and he says, "It turns out we're looking for a monologue writer." I said, "Well, what should I do?" He says, "You've done everything. He said, "Wait, and I'll give you a call and you'll come in next week." So Adrian and I went out to Vegas to play Bob Kephardt's room in Vegas.
Oh,
Bob Kephart, by the way, for your listeners, I mean, I hope he's drying out, but I don't think so. But Bob Kephart had a club in Atlantic City and Las Vegas, and Bob Kephart, at the end of the gig, it was a 7-day gig, and at the end of the gig, you'd get your check post-dated for Wednesday.
Yes, that's right.
Right? And he had his 10th anniversary. Adrian was there, Rosie, Ray Romano, and I was there just hanging out with Adrian. And they gave a bottle of champagne to everybody, and I said, "You're not allowed to open it till Wednesday." So that was Bob Kephart. So
I hated that fucking room at the Trop, the comedy stop at the Trop. I hated that, and that fucking condo. All right, go ahead.
So I was always the comic that was the last guy in the condo before they switched to the hotel.
Yeah.
And it was always and the first guy when they went from hotel to condo. I was always that guy. Look, we're putting Rich Hall next week. Okay, great. And so I go to Vegas with Adrian, working in Vegas. Me, Adrian, Gary Delina.
Oh yeah,
a lot of fun.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and it's all I can do to not think about this gig because it's a life-changing gig. Morton calls me, says, come in Monday. We took the red eye back, and Adrian says, listen, when you go in, don't smoke the cigar. Don't have the cigar. And I was never without a cigar back then. I was never, okay, fine. So I walk in. I'd met Dave a couple times. And he looks at me and he says, I remember you. Didn't you came here with some acts? I came with Mendoza.
Right.
I came with Mar. I came with JJ. He said, you gave me a cigar. So he remembered me.
Right.
So we start talking, and, he says to me, I hope we can work something out. It's like, what do you mean? Fucking ask me. What do you mean? Hope we can? And then I saw Steve O'Donnell, and he said, I hope we can work,
Right.
And then Dave said, make sure that you come back and say goodbye before you leave. So I see Steve. I see Morton. I hope we can work something out.
Right.
Now, I come back, and I say to Dave, do you have any advice for me? And this is a guy never gave feedback. He was always just a yes/no guy. And he said this to me, it's the most practical piece of advice I ever got, and maybe the only piece of advice he ever gave me about writing jokes. He said, listen, don't write anything longer than 4 lines. I don't care how good it is. If it's longer than 4 lines, I can't fit it on a cue card. So that was and he never said it. And then the last thing I said to him was, listen, for what it's worth, I hear your softball team needs a center fielder. Because I was
you were like a major softball player.
And he said to me, we need everything. And I got hired the next day.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you worked something out.
Yeah.
Now, that was a life-changing.
Oh, absolutely.
And how was that for your relationship? And also, was Adrian like, oh my God, thank God? Or
She was. We were very, very thankful because we were a little in the hole because I was a degenerate gambler.
Right.
Now, let's say, just for round figures, this is the way my mind worked back then. Let's say for round numbers, we were 50 G's in the hole.
Right.
My plan back then, so 50 G's in the hole.
The Knicks.
My plan back, after that, plan B. Plan A was the Knicks. Plan B was get hit by a cab and sue the cab company for $65,000. That was the plan.
Right.
That was the plan. Or get a job. And so I get this gig. And
you had no idea how long you'd be there.
No. I had no idea how long I'd be. You're just trying not to get fired.
Right.
And
every fucking TV job is like that. If you're an actor, a
musician, anything. It's not meant. You're not meant to have a job for 24 years. And it was very tough on Adrian at first. She did not tell me because all of a sudden I'm not around during the day and I'm working these straight hours.
Right.
And I would stay up late, but so that was very tough at first.
She had to adjust.
But then
But she didn't have to go on the road anymore.
Right, correct. And she got to do what she wanted to do. And it works, and all your life really, really changes. All of a sudden, we're living in an apartment without vermin.
Right.
And I lived on 25th.
Was Passover?
Give yourself one. Okay. And then we lived on 25th Street, and you know how rats and mice can't live together?
Yeah.
They're like the Shiites and the whatever the other
Sunnis,
people.
Yeah.
They can't live together. So there would be rats coming out of every building on 25th.
Right.
My building, mice.
Right.
And they were like, you should thank me. The landlord, you should thank me. Because you
don't have rats.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get to move, and it's a grind, but to me it was great because to me it combined all of my careers because I love being a newspaper man because I love deadlines.
Right.
I love being a comic, and this was just getting a paper out every day. But I still did stand up for the first year or so I was at the show, and I remember I would go to the Catskills on the weekend.
Oh, I remember that Saturday night gig.
Right, and you would, and you know how when you're you're going to the Catskills, right?
Yeah.
And it's about, let's say it's 6:30.
Yeah.
And you're almost at the George Washington Bridge, and then you got to go over the Palisades Parkway, up to the Quick Way.
Yeah.
And then I would be driving over, and I would think I've done nothing. I have to do all this drive, then I have to wait around, then I have to do my little act,
right?
And I got to drive I've done nothing, and then so as bad as that was,
right?
now I got this job where I'm writing, at the time, I was only writing about 20 jokes a day. I went up to about 50 or 60 a day.
Wow.
So I'm writing 100 jokes a day, which is the equivalent of about 25 minutes of material, 4 jokes a minute.
Right.
And I'm thinking, I'm in this car, I'm going up the Catskills to do my shitty little act that I've been doing for 13 years of the same jokes, and I'm giving this guy 25 new minutes a week. He's doing it, he's not doing it, doesn't matter. But what does that say about me as a comic, about how lazy I was? You know, if it worked, I had the accountant's attitude. Let me tell you about a gig we did in the Catskills. So one time, Adrian and I are booked together, and Adrian got the better gig because Adrian got the gig with the stage.
Right.
And the actual stage. And
which hotel?
Adrian we were both working at Coco Lanes. So Adrian did one place. I want to say it's like Vacation Village. Right. And it was when Adrian said, "Where's the ladies' room?" And they say, "It's through that door." She walked through the door. She's outside. You know, it's the ladies' room. It's that tree. So, and the ante room before you went on, my hand to God, before the room next to the stage, my hand to God, there's a menorah with like a neon flashing sign on the menorah. Zzz, 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 6 million.
No way!
Like an Auschwitz McDonald's. Honest to God.
No way!
6 million.
I want to see that menorah.
No way.
So Adrian, goes, and it's a legit place because, like I said, it has a stage.
Right.
So then, and I go to some bungalow colony, with the barbed wire. I mean, they flee the Nazis so they can vacation
in a concentration
camp. Now you got it. So now it's, so there's a show. My show's at 2 a.m.
Wow.
So there's a 12 o'clock show. And then they all go back. So the 12 o'clock show ends. And now everybody goes back to their bungalows for like a gang toity.
Right.
And now they come back for the 2.
Right.
Right. Now I'm closing.
Right.
And I got to follow a hypnotist.
Right.
2 a.m. Hypnotist putting people under. 2 a.m. So he gets 4 guys from the stage for, I don't call, we used to not call them hot seats. We used to call them I would say, "Where are you working this weekend?" Adrian would say, So now he gets 4 guys on stage and he puts them all under, and he does a couple of things. Okay, fine. Now the third thing he does with them, he says, "We're going to have an ice cream licking contest." And the guy that does it the best wins the prize. So now he's giving these phantom ice cream cones to each guy. First guy says, "You get chocolate. And you get vanilla.
Right.
And you get strawberry." Now he's run out of traditional flavors.
Right.
He's up to the 4th guy and he says, "And you get heavenly hash." And the guy under says, "No. Why not? You don't." "Not kosher." He's under. He's observing dietary law while he's under. Honest to Christ. I mean, I got to follow this guy. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So, yeah. So
I remember that. I remember those fucking shows. And then you get home at 5 in the morning.
You get home at 5 in the morning. Jack Bellac, who was 100,
oh my God!
would call to give you the directions.
Yeah.
And
Hi,
he
Jody,
would say,
it's Jack Bellac.
Right.
Yeah.
Jack Bellac. Jack Bellac used to call me once a year, once every 6 months. And what he meant to say when he would call me was, will you do anything?
Right.
But what he would come out with, "Bill, Jack Bellac, do you do anything?" It was come out like that.
Yeah.
Do you do anything? Do you do anything? I mean, it's like, what do you mean?
I can't. I still
And he
can
would
see
give
his
you.
name in my fucking book.
He would give you directions,
Jack
and it
Bellac.
would be, take the 3rd light.
Because we didn't have GPS.
Right,
Yeah.
pull over and ask a cop.
Yeah.
That would be on the directions. And they were, it was.
One time I was coming home from that late night gig. It was me. I was driving. It was Howard Feller.
Oh, God.
Remember his girlfriend? What the fuck was
Oh,
her
no,
name?
Gilda.
Gilda, yeah.
Gilda Conrad.
And Karen Lorschbau. who hates me. I don't know why. She decided she
Right.
hated me, and she threw my picture at the Comedy Store in L.A.
You know,
Anyway.
Larry Amorose would not go on at a comedy club until they took down the picture of Bobby Collins.
Is that true?
Well, would refuse to go on.
That's so funny.
Would refuse.
Hey, it's Bobby Collins.
Yeah.
And we got a flat tire on the way home at like 4 a.m.
Was it your car?
Yes.
Did you get a lot of work because you had a car?
I had my father had died, and I had got his Buick. Yeah.
Right.
But I was getting work anyway, but then I got to drive. Yeah, I would
Now,
drive.
did you ever work for Jerry Stanley?
Oh, yeah, I remember that name.
Now, Jerry Stanley could have been the richest guy in comedy,
Right.
but he was like a petty thief, and he was a small-time guy. And Jerry Stanley opened this. There were a bunch of clubs in Jersey. Most of them were on Sunday night, and he paid $55. It was three-man show. If you drove, he gave you $15 for gas, and if you emceed, he gave you $10. So you could be driving and emceeing and be the worst act in the car and make the most money.
Right.
Yeah, and John Mendoza used to, and everybody, it was $55,
Right.
$55. John Mendoza used to say to me, "You want to drive Heyman crazy?" John Heyman.
Oh, yeah.
He said, just before you get paid at a Jerry Stanley gig, cup another 20 in your hand. Then count the money in front of him. Yeah, 70, 75.
Yeah.
That's right. And then just walk away. He said, drive him crazy.
Oh, that's so fun. Where is John Heyman?
John Heyman worked on Curb Your Enthusiasm last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Larry
Okay.
gave me, yeah. He's out there, yeah. And John Mendoza
Oh,
was
my
really,
God.
really funny, and I like to think I helped get him the Tonight Show. I mean,
Yeah.
he was
Oh, I
plenty
remember when
good.
he did it. I was like, "Who's this guy?" That's
He's
great.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
But he used to do guys. I love guys that did lines once or twice and never again.
Right.
And he did a line. He would go on stage and he would say, "Any Vietnam vets?" "Yeah, I'm the only one again." I mean, I used to love that one. Jerry Seinfeld, you know, Marr used to talk about the way Jerry had thrown out an A act.
Right.
And Jerry did a piece. Maybe he did it twice or three times. And the piece was on being bar mitzvahed. And he would say, you know, when you're Jewish and you're 13, you get bar mitzvahed, and it's today I am a man. He said, now, when I was 13, he said, my skin was breaking out, my voice was cracking, none of my clothes fit, I was awkward. If I was standing by the side of the road and a car broke down, I don't think the guy would say, let me see if we can get that man to help us. He never, and he did it like
Right.
because it identified him as
It was a
Jewish.
Jew.
Right.
Yeah.
I know. What is that?
It's that Bund thing,
Yeah.
you know?
It's what?
It's a Bund thing,
Yeah.
you know, like they're going to come after
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
But it's also like Seinfeld was 4 Jews on that show, but never mentioned that they were Jewish.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like the 4 most Jewy characters, and it's the most successful sitcom ever.
Right.
And yeah, all right.
Yeah.
So you
It's baffling.
it is.
Yeah, you know, Jason Alexander, I was the first guy to read for George.
You were?
Yeah, because I was in Larry. Larry did a review of all the sketches that had gotten turned down on Saturday Night Live. He put it all together in a show, and it was and so there was a troupe, and it was him, me, Scrovan, Steve Scrovan,
Oh, I
John,
love Steve.
yeah, John Heyman, and Mike Ivey,
Nice.
Howard Feller, and we had one girl playing all the girl parts, and a woman named Kathy Levitan, and we did 2 runs.
Right.
And so Larry would say to me, you know, you do me better than anybody. So he writes this pilot with Jerry, and he says, will you come over and put a scene on tape so I can show it to Jerry? So I went to Kenny Kramer's apartment,
Oh yeah.
and Larry played Jerry, and I played George, and we did the scene. I'm cracking Larry, you know, and we finished the scene. And he says, oh, I'm going to submit this. And I go, well, who else is up for this? And he says, Larry Miller. I said, who's been auditioning for the part of Jerry's best friend for
Right.
40 years.
Yeah.
He says, and Jason Alexander. I said, the guy just won the Tony? Yeah, it's the same guy. And so that's what happened. And so Jason, this is years later, a few years later, he's on our show. He's on Letterman show. And I talking to Larry, I don't know about what. And I said, hey, Jason was on the show tonight. And he says, are you enjoying the way he's distancing himself from the character? And I was so pissed off about that.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you get this job. Your whole life changes.
Right.
And you start writing these, but like, it's sort of like a dream come true.
Oh, yeah. But the thing is that because, and you'll understand this, here's where the self-loathing comes in.
Right.
So I get this job at Letterman, which is great, and I feel great about it for about 6 months.
Right.
And then it's, well, I'm not a real writer.
Right.
I'm just writing gags
Right.
for some guy. You know, real writers, they write books. And I don't have the gene in me to write a book. And things happen in 1995. I start writing my first novel. It's the one novel that hasn't been published, and because it was typical first novels, 100,000 words,
Right.
80,000 of which were I. And everybody said the same thing. Everybody said, this is hilarious.
Right.
How about a plot?
Right.
And I thought that was a little nitpicky.
Right.
And so for my second book, I said, I'll go with this plot thing that
Yeah.
everyone's so thrilled about. And so I write my second book. It gets published. And of course, which is great, which is astounding. And then you think, yeah, but anybody can
Right.
write
Exactly.
a book.
Yeah.
A real writer
Yeah.
writes
Two
two novels,
books.
gets pulled.
Yeah.
And this goes on
Right.
to this day. You know, I'm
Right.
almost a real writer.
Wait a minute.
Right.
I went through all these books, right? Where's the memoir? Like you have
I know,
the
the
great.
greatest
Are you kidding me?
stories, yeah.
These just what we're doing today.
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
worked with everybody. Like I have a million questions. You knew Bill Hicks.
Oh,
you
but not only did I know Bill
you know
Hicks,
the story-
Adrian
Yeah.
was responsible for getting him on the old show, even though, of course, Jay takes credit.
Right, of
as
course.
he takes credit for everything.
Right.
It's in the North Pole. I saw Comedy Perry. I said, come to the North Pole. Really, Jay, you were in the North Pole? Everything. Here's the thing about Jay. Everything he's doing is correct.
Right.
Everything you're doing is wrong.
incorrect,
And
yeah.
Jeff Stilson said a great, who's one
I
of my
love
best friends,
Jeff.
one of the
I
great.
love him.
Yeah. He's very happy. But, when Jeff was working on Chris Rock's HBO show,
Right.
he goes with Chris to Leno. And Leno sees him and takes him aside and says, let me tell you what Chris is doing wrong on his show. and Jeff says, well, Jay, Chris is going for laughs,
Right.
not votes. And walked away. So perfect.
Oh my god.
That is perfect.
awesome.
Yeah. But, I just want to say, coming around full circle,
Yes.
3 days after she dies, I get a call from Jay. And Jay and I hadn't talked in a long time because we both got caught up in the nonsense.
Right.
And he called and left a message, and I mean fighting back tears. And I had two thoughts when I heard the message. First of all, this really happened.
Right.
Was if he's and then
Right.
and then the next thought was, I can't wait to get home and tell Adrian.
Right.
Guess who called me? Leno.
Right.
Leno called me. We're all good
Right.
now on everything. But no, yeah. But Adrian saw Bill.
Oh,
we're not
that's-
going to talk about it because to me, I don't think that it's. I like telling the stories, and I just don't. I think that if I got them all together, when I get it, whenever I come out with a book, the world yawns, and I think that would be the case. And I wanted to.
I
When
You
disagree.
could call the book Ambien.
well, then now we're having a conversation.
I disagree.
The first time I took it, let me just say, the first time they say take Ambien, get into bed within 20 minutes.
Right.
Because you're going to be cooking, right?
Right.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
So it was after my first surgery, because when you get out of the hospital, you can't sleep that well. So give me Ambien for 5 days, and the guy says, take it, but then you got to get in bed within 20 minutes. So I go, okay. So I take it, I get in bed. At the 20th minute, I think, this is... 6 hours later, just a complete shade pull. And then
That's
6 hours later.
That's
Wake
funny.
up Wednesday.
Yeah.
And you've written for so many people.
Yeah.
And then you wrote for Barack Obama.
Yeah. But that was Larry came to me.
Right.
He called me, Mr. David, correspondent to Obama. I got everything is an emergency.
Right.
And so we met and we wrote some jokes and we had a lot of fun. And, here's the great thing about Larry, David. He really gives it up.
Right.
And Jerry Seinfeld really gives it up. And not all comics give it up. Some very famous and I think that is a huge character defect. If you're a comic and you can't laugh at
someone else's joke
because it's too threatening,
right?
Steve Martin,
right?
Does he listen to this? Because he would be in that club,
right?
You have to ask yourself: have you ever seen Steve Martin laugh at somebody else?
Right. That is the worst.
Yeah. To me, that is a capital offense.
Right.
So,
but then you met Barack when he did Letterman.
I'd met him a couple. Yeah. Oh, well,
Right.
I know this.
Yeah.
But here's Obama came on as a candidate, was great, and now he comes on as a sitting president, and it's all different because they have to really upgrade security. So what they have to close off all the entrances, and everybody has to funnel through under the marquee, right? So they have to. So I'm going through the metal detector, and then the guy warns me. Before he warns me, I say to him, I only had one artificial hip.
Right.
I said, I have an artificial hip. And so he warns me, big smile on his face. They were always great, those guys that worked with Obama. Some Secret Servicemen are, they're like your image of Secret Service. So he's smiling, and now he looks at me, smile completely fades from his face. And he says to me, "What's in your pocket?" And there was I was wearing a sport coat, and there was like a bulge in my left sport coat pocket. And I knew what it was, and I reach in and I pull out 50 packets of Splenda that I had stolen from the Starbucks across the street. And the guy, listen to it. We have a Jew in Area A. Scramble.
That's so funny.
But he's funny like a comic Obama.
Yeah. Oh, his timing.
It's fantastic.
Those dinners, and Fuckhead won't even do a dinner. That motherfucker.
No, why? And you know what? It's the only thing he's done that I like.
Right.
That he didn't do the correspondence dinner. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, he has no sense of humor.
He's a.
But here's the thing about him pre-candidate. I always thought he was a miserable human being. But Bill Maher used to do a bit about Don King and how he thought Don King was just the lowest form of life. And then they were on some show together, and they were in the green room, and Don King saw him and said, "Bill Maher, you're a national treasure. You're a brilliant man. I never miss your show." And Bill Maher thinks, Don King is a pretty good guy.
Yeah, that's right.
So Trump used to come on the show, and Dave loved him because, as Dave would say, he could really take a punch.
Yep.
And he... I would go up to the guests afterward, thank you. I never had much of an exchange. And I went up to Trump because I knew he was a big golfer. And I said, how you hitting him? And he said, I'm down to like a 2, which I know is a lie. He's not a 2 handicap. And I said, great, good, okay. So now he leaves. The next time he comes on the show, and I used to, this is way too revealing about me. When the Celebrity Apprentice was on, I would walk the streets pretending that I was a contestant in the boardroom, and what I would say to him that they would have to throw me off. What I would say to him, that I would call him Donnie,
right?
And that I would just be in his face all the time, and how long I would last.
Right.
When you're walking in Adrienne used to say she didn't have an imaginary friend; she had an imaginary biographer. But I would walk in the street imagining this nonsense.
Right.
And and then when he said the thing about, we all know how Barack Obama got into Harvard, he played that card.
Right.
And, so he was just always beneath contempt. Always.
Right.
So now he comes, but a great guest. So now he comes on the show. This is a couple times later. And he finishes up whatever his nonsense is. And I come over and he sees me and he shakes my hand. And he points to me and he says to Dave, terrific golfer. Which I am not.
Right.
And I just, Donald Trump is a good guy. And even somebody like
Right.
Katie Tur
Right.
will frequently say, I don't
Yes,
think,
father.
Oh, really? Do you know the story about her father when the guy called? Yeah.
Yeah, Zoe.
Yeah. Go ahead, do that again. I mean, grab the guy by the
Right.
neck. And Katie Tur will still say he can be charming.
Right.
He can do that thing where,
Right.
but
I want to read that book. Have you read her book?
I read a big excerpt from it in a few months ago
Yeah.
before. Yeah, I'm sure it's great. She's a
Yeah.
wonderful writer.
I know. I love her. Don't you hate him?
Yeah, I do. You know what? But the thing is that all the energy is going in the wrong direction. And the new thing that people do that drives me nuts, that the media does, is they are constantly now congratulating themselves when they successfully psychoanalyze him.
Right.
That is somehow the ground to be gained. And like when they say things like, well, the reason why that he's so obsessed with the NFL is because he was denied ownership of an NFL team twice. Bravo.
Right.
That doesn't solve the fact that,
he's a fucking unfit
right. That
mental
doesn't solve the
case.
fact that he's going to build a wall and then put a warning track in front of
Right.
it. So that the border security can make those spectacular catches. So it's not so.
Ugh, I can't take him.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Make another smart choice with Auto Quote Explorer to compare rates from multiple car insurance companies all at once. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
How is life without Adrian?
It is really odd. I'll just pass this along. Don't let anybody tell you when you're supposed to start living again, and
Right.
don't let anybody tell you when you're supposed to stop mourning.
Right.
Because there's no playbook for this. It was really, really tough.
Right.
And then at about 6 months, it was okay. And then I had it was okay for like 3 months. And I was okay. All right, I'm going to be
Okay,
all right.
yeah.
And then I then the seasons changed. And
Yeah.
because now this is when it all started
Right.
to happen
Yes.
last year. And I just hit a wall. And it's, there's there really is no playbook for this. And the good thing is I know I'm never going to get married again because
Right.
I don't have to because I did it.
Right.
And I don't know if that's a good thing. And I have my niece living with me. You know that?
You do?
Oh, this is a great story. So we now, and thank you for coming to the memorial. So after
my God.
after the memorial.
Maybe the best thing I've ever
It was
seen.
unbelievable.
But here's the thing, and because we're way far adrift of what this podcast is about. So we have this memorial.
right.
It's on a Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. in January. 400 people show up. It was beyond anything I could have ever had hoped for Adrian and for everybody that loved her. And it was great, and it was great. And then about 3 days later, it started. About 4 or 5 people. How come I didn't know about the memorial?
No fucking
What?
way. Are you fucking
How
kidding
come
me?
I didn't know about
What the fuck is wrong with people?
And you know what's amazing? Not any of the 4 was Jim David. How come I didn't know about the memorial?
How come I didn't know about the memorial? You
I
have
wanted
no
to get you
idea
to
how funny that
I
is.
wanted, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was unbelievable. And I say to him,
It's like, it's all about you,
there
you
were
fucking
400
asshole.
people.
Yeah.
It was on, and then you would say, then I would get engaged.
Right.
My mistake, and I would say, well, there were 400 people there, It was on Facebook.
Right.
It was on Twitter. It was in the papers.
Right.
Well, I don't do any of that stuff.
Too bad, you fucking asshole.
And
Yeah, and you weren't missed.
I fucking hate. I know, right?
Yeah, really.
And I hate you. And Adrian hated your fucking guts
Yeah.
too.
it was
As Adrian
awesome.
would say, totally free of the burden of talent.
Yeah, exactly.
But-
it
so
was
it's
amazing.
after the memorial, and I'm taking my family out to lunch the next day, and my sister says to me,
Is this the doctor?
No. This my sister's a teacher.
The
long
teacher,
time.
fourth grade teacher.
Yeah, she said to me, Allie, who's my other sister's daughter, is leaving Abercrombie and Fitch. She's a designer, and she's moving to New York. And I barely know this little girl. She's
Right.
29. But in my head, I think, this is important. So I go
Right.
up to Allie, and I say, I hear you're moving to New York.
Right.
Why don't you move in with me and stay with me? And it's one of the great gifts, and we barely knew each other,
Right.
but it's good morning, good night, I love you. You get that every day.
Right.
And she is the gorgeous adopted Korean daughter
Right.
of my sister. So as I tell people, she's now been living with me long enough so the doormen believe
Right.
she actually is my niece.
Right.
And she has a pet rabbit. If this was 30 years ago, I could have sold this show to
Right,
Fox.
exactly.
It's like Widower's Peak, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Margaret Cho. Yeah.
so on Monday, every Monday I leave the house before her because I get up early and I walk across the park to my shrink on West End Avenue,
Right.
which is the most Jewish thing you could possibly do in New
Ding,
York.
ding, ding. Yes.
Walk across
Yes.
Central Park to your shrink.
Yeah.
And so I go, and now I come back, and then she comes back from work that night. And I said, how'd it go? She said, well, and her rabbit's name is Albert. She said, I was late for work because Albert got out of his cage, and I couldn't find him for 20 minutes. So I was late for work.
Right.
So I go to work, and I go to my supervisor, and I say, I'm sorry I'm late, but Albert got out of his cage, escaped, and it took me 20 minutes to find him. And the supervisor said, and Albert is your uncle that you live with? which is so close to what's going on in my house.
That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Do we want to talk about the cue card guy?
I mean, well, it's you. If you want to talk about it, you can. I'm not gonna give you. It's not gonna be very spicy. I'll just say to you that I knew this guy. We were very good friends.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny version. We won't talk about the assault, but I will say this. So this was a guy that loved going to HR.
Right.
Loved.
Yes.
He
I
loved,
know those people.
He loved doing that. He was the
Right.
Vietnam vet in the mailroom.
Right.
It's like whatever you do,
Right. Don't piss off.
And Dave enabled people like this because he
Right.
just didn't want to deal. And I understand that.
Right.
So Tony and I were very good friends. His former lover was the cue card guy at late night, and I was friends with him, and I got to be and so Tony. Here's a Tony story. So Dave gets shingles, and we have a series of guest hosts, and one of the guest hosts was Brad Garrett, and Tony didn't feel that he should have to work at the show when other people were hosting. So he purposely does not write the full information on a card.
Right.
And Brad Garrett, he's not doing his act, so what's going to happen, right? But, our next act is and Brad Garrett freezes because there's nothing on the card.
Right.
And then so we, stop the tape. Brad Garrett starts to get angry. Tony gets angry at him, spits at him, storms off, and the next day he calls Barbara Gaines from the airport and he says, I have left the show. I'm not coming back till Dave comes back. And it's like, well, you can't do
That's
that.
not how it works.
Yeah. So you can't do that. So he he quits, and then they fire him, and then he blackmails. He gets his job back, but while has quit the show and is in Florida, Julie Halston, our mutual friend, she's in Gypsy, and Adrian and I are going to Gypsy, and I've invited him and somebody else. But he's quit the show and moved to Florida.
Right.
So I invite somebody else. And he calls me the day the thing, he says, what time should we meet? I said, Tony, I didn't, I heard you quit the show and moved to Florida. But that was really helpful, and he was all, I said, well, what can I say? So he hangs up on me. Right. Now he comes back to the show, and he pulls a little number on me, which gets me down to HR.
Right.
Saying that I used some offensive language around him at a comedy show. I mentioned I worked on a comedy show. So I get written up.
Oh,
and my brother,
God.
the lawyer,
Right.
has to call, and I get written up by this woman who is just doing her job, I'm good friends with. And my brother calls her back and says, we can't. So now I then leave the show. I take a leave of absence from the show to finish a book. And I come back to the show, and I realize if I'm going to start again at the show, I have to take care of my troublesome relationships going forward. So the first day back, I go to Tony, because I have to work with him. When you're doing the monologue, you're working exclusively with the cue card guy.
Yes.
This is going to pay off, believe me.
No, I love it.
So I go in and I
very
say
invested.
to him, listen, I'm sorry about what I said, and if it offended you, and I just want to let you know that I don't behave that way anymore. So, and he's stunned. He can't believe that I'm apologizing for something that happened a year ago. So the next day, he walks in my office. He decides to unburden himself. And he says to me, I just want to tell you that the reason that I turned you in to HR was because you disinvited me to Gypsy. Which is maybe the gayest reason to drop a dime on because you disinvited that's horrible. But that's that's Tony.
Yeah.
That's Tony.
That's so funny.
That's Tony. I hope he's okay. I hope he got help. It was really a bad moment for me, but the show was great to me, and I think the show did the right thing. Thing.
How are you?
Meanwhile, he got a better severance package than I did. But
how are you and Eddie these days?
I haven't seen Eddie in a long time. What is Eddie saying? I got him fired?
No, I wanted to know what you thought of that whole thing. Eddie, he did the podcast too. Eddie Brill was interviewed for something and says it was taken out of context, but
he okay.
The New York Times,
right?
Yeah, but
so
also it's like, don't interview for something if you don't check.
First of all, you had to clear every interview with the show before you did it.
Right.
He didn't, because he had done a lot of them over the years. Mm-hmm. He didn't think he had to. And he said something representing the show. Whatever, taken out of context, taken in context, he said something the show could not defend. As a representative of the show, he said something the show could not defend.
Right.
So the show said, well, you can't book acts on. And but you're gonna we'll keep you as the warm-up guy. And then, so that, I think it was about 2 years later or whatever, and he did something after a show that he was told, and that's, and it's really too bad. I mean, because he loved the gig. I mean, I got him the gig, and but he had a million last at bats.
Right. Who gets quoted in the New York Times saying, women aren't funny.
Women comics aren't authentic.
Right. And they're just trying to be guys, and then keeps his job. Like, that was nice of them to let him still do the warm-up.
Right. And then the other thing was, then he got into it online with Amy, and who was she going out with? He was
Jezelnik.
Yeah, he got into it with. He kept.
But he
referring.
Kept it going,
he kept referring to Amy as your girlfriend rather than that she's a comic.
Right.
And I mean, there's people sitting at this table who probably should have gotten on the show 5 years earlier. I can't tell you, and I didn't go out that, and I think that, look, I think that Eddie always did the best he could.
Right.
I really do believe that. I think he did the best he could. But it's a very powerful position. And I don't know if you ever met Jim McCauley when he was with the Tonight.
I did, yeah.
The most corruptible, the corrupt mayor of a small town, Jim McCauley.
Right.
And we can say that because he's Zed.
Right.
But so Eddie, this is the thing. I can't tell you, I wouldn't go out that much. But I would go out with Adrian. She would say, I want you to see this guy. I want you to see this girl. I want you to see this. And I would... Not unlike, and you and I had the same conversation. She did the gig with, I can't remember the third act on that show, but I went up to you and I said, has anybody seen you? And everybody would always, it was an identical look that everybody gave me. They would give me that look like, well, you know what that is. And oh, yeah, okay, right. And a couple people I was able to get in under the tent flaps, and I'm happy about that. But it's a very powerful job, and it's easy. It's easy to go down, and especially if you're an act. You know, Alan Bursky. Do you know Alan Bursky?
I know that name.
Okay, so Alan Bursky was the guy that loaned Freddie Prinze his gun to shoot him, because Freddie Prinze got rid of all his guns.
Alan Bursky's got jumped off the...
No. That's Steve Lebetkin.
That's Steve Lebetkin, yes.
Right. Alan Bursky was the youngest person ever to be on The Tonight Show. The youngest comic.
Yeah.
And Freddie Prinze got rid of all his guns because he was suicidal. And then he was friends with Alan. And he said, I'm depressed. And Alan said, why? He says, because my shrink told me to get rid of all my guns. And Alan said, I got a gun. so now Alan Bursky. Right. So yeah, what a coincidence. And so he was a terrible comic and a terrible human being. And David Brenner used to do a bit off stage, which was, I'm having a party. You're invited. Who's going to be there? Hitler? Mussolini, Alan Bursky. Alan Bursky, I'm not going. That's how bad a guy he was. So he becomes an agent, and he.
Well, it's a perfect job.
He's right, but he gets the breakdowns, so he starts sending himself up for stuff.
No fucking way.
So now he's an agent, and here comes the breakdowns, and they're doing. ABC is doing a movie. Can You Hear the Laughter? The Freddie Prinze story. The guy from The White Shadow, Ira.
Oh.
He was an Armenian name. Ira Asadorian or whatever the fuck his name. He's not here. And he's Freddie Prinze, and the casting call goes out. They're looking for someone to play Alan Bursky. So Bursky changes his name.
No way.
Goes in for the audition, reads, and the people at ABC say, "You're just too angry." Couldn't get it. So gig.
Too bad he didn't shoot himself.
Yeah, right. Too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, Adrian, one time they have him emceeing at Dangerfields, and you know how tough a room that was.
Oh, yeah.
The toughest room. So Adrian is going on first, and they have Bursky emceeing, and Adrian, and he's just alienating the crowd, and he's doing like 15 up front, and Adrian says, it's 5 minutes. He's yelling at people. I go downstairs. I go to the bathroom. I come back upstairs, and this is what I hear. Here's $5. Go on the street and buy yourself a fucking pill. I mean, and now the comedy of Adrian Toll. I mean, he was just so, all the charm of a dock strike.
Wow.
Thank you.
So Eddie, engaged a lot of people in that. And,
correct.
And would write to me, you know me, and I was thinking, yeah, I do, but I
nevertheless,
yeah, I mean, I never was he wouldn't even entertain coming to see me do a set or anything, but it's not. And
he would, but not only that, it was one of those things where it would go so far down the line that he would make it, in his head. That it was your idea not to be on the show.
Right.
And that's it. And
I mean, it was the New York show, and the New York comics should have been on that fucking show.
There were a million. Yeah. And look, there's a lot of people that didn't get the Tonight Show who should have.
Right, of course.
That's a long
Right.
club of which I am a member. And but I don't it wasn't a comic making those decisions. And you
Right.
can say, and I believe that comics booking the shows at Catch is what made Catch so great.
Right.
Because they knew the energy, they
Right.
knew
They knew how to put a show together. Yeah.
They knew when it's time for a high energy act, when it's
Right.
time for a low energy act, when it's time for a singer. And that's a good idea when
Right.
everybody's getting $6 and it doesn't really cost anybody
Right.
their career, or it's not you're
Right.
not a gatekeeper. And I know that, and I hope that I'm sure that he's working, and I'm sure he's doing okay, and I know that he harbors, some blame against me, but I didn't,
Right.
I didn't do it,
Right.
and he got a lot of times at bat,
Right.
and he did a lot of good work.
And
for
a lot of people don't get that many. I mean, most people don't get that many times.
Well,
at bat.
there was a club. The only club I drew at on the road was in Detroit because I would do the morning radio show, and people would come. It was never, I was
Right.
never a draw. And but I drew in Detroit, and it was the Comedy Castle was the best.
Oh,
one.
yeah, I remember
Mark
that.
Ridley, great
Yes,
guy,
yes,
not
yes,
from this
yes.
earth. So I would, I'd play there twice a year. So I would come in. And my hand to God, I would come in, and it would always be, I would walk in. Oh, thank God you're here. Kip Adata was here last week. He had 250 walkouts. He walked out in a $1,500 bar tab. He trashed his room.
Right.
Got one waitress pregnant. Took
Right.
another to the free clinic. Thank God.
Yeah.
God you're here. Right?
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, I'd be back at the same money.
Right.
And thank God you're here. Kip Adata.
Yeah,
was
I
here.
know,
At
right?
a raise.
Right.
What
the fuck is that?
Because
what is
some
that?
people really know how to be that fly vinegar
Right.
thing. They really know how to do that. I mean, the late Rich Jenney, nobody better on stage.
Right.
But the thing is, he should have lived on
Right.
stage
Right.
because he couldn't navigate
Right.
life off
Yeah.
stage, and but he was endlessly annoying. And I just finished another novel, and it was relentless.
I want that memoir so
I
bad.
know.
It's
But I
the
have a book
greatest.
coming out. I just finished a book.
What's
and
the
it's
name?
it's about a comic, a bust out 60-year-old comic named Tommy Dash, who's trying to apologize his way back into show business.
Right.
And the book is called "Was It Everything I Said?" And the first
great.
story, he's got to apologize to Clint Eastwood, and this
Right.
is something that happened to Rich Jenney, and I told it at his memorial. And I saw Jenny and we went out for dinner with Adrian. This is a few years, however many years ago.
Right.
And I said, I've been telling a story about you. I don't even know if it's true or not. And he says, go ahead. And I said, I heard that you got like a really nice part in the Clint Eastwood movie Bird. Like the perfect part for a comic.
Right.
One scene where it's
Right.
all you. By the way, you were the only good thing in I'm Dying Up Here. You were great.
Thank
You were
you.
great. How about how they think we can't act?
What is that shit?
Yeah, because-
and I'm like, send that out. I
Right.
Yeah.
So
You're
so
great.
he
Thank you.
gets this scene in Bird. Now Clint Eastwood is notorious for coming in under budget, 8-hour days, total preparation, and he
Right.
films all rehearsals. So Jenny shows up, and they're going to do his scene. So Jenny rehearses the scene, and Jenny does it, and they stop, and Clint says, hey, that was great, but could you do it again and be a little less angry? And Jenny, in front of the cast, the crew, says, I'm too angry. Here's a guy comes into town, kills everybody. And Clint walks by the AD and says, get rid of him. And
Oh God.
so I tell Jenny the story, and he says, not only did it happen, he says, you tell it much better than me.
Yeah.
I told his memorial, and so this is the first thing. Tommy Dash has to apologize to Clint Eastwood, and so there's a lot of stuff like that, and there's a lot of names that we'll all
that's
know,
fucking
and
great.
great stories, and stories stories I know, stories that happened to me, stories
Right.
I had to make up. Robin Williams one time was on the show, and at the end he was running through all these great heckle lines that he had heard people say from the audience. And there's the guy, John Philo, who's a photographer, caught a picture of me and him. And I went up to him and I said, the best heckler line I ever heard from an audience was, "Hey, move away, I can't see the bricks."
That's fucking great. That's the best. That is the best.
Man.
So, I ask everyone these two questions.
Go ahead.
A, have you ever been on any antidepressants?
No.
What? I knew it.
Yes, finally.
Shut
Somebody.
up.
Me and
I
you.
know.
We're on our own
I
island.
Have
mean-
you, Seth?
Oh God, no.
I know.
Yeah,
I
there
want to
you
get
go.
off so bad.
You know
I
what
hate
Larry
it.
Amorose used to call his mother?
What?
Placido Domingo.
That's fucking funny.
Well, do you have you tried to titrate down?
Yeah, I'm doing that now. But I had a very bad clinical depression. How long? Almost 8 years ago. So
And how long did it last?
it lasted a long time. I mean, it took me to feel better like 2.5 years, but till I woke up and I was like, oh, I'm okay.
Are you asking me, do I believe in them?
No,
Yes.
Yeah. No, we're very pro mental health and stuff. So, and it helps people when we talk about it. And there's so many people that have been on the show.
But
that-
it is such an imprecise
right.
science. And
I mean, I've had a lot of trial and errors.
right.
And that's
you've
that's
had
the
to
thing.
do some buffet.
Yeah.
You've had
Yeah.
to do some of the buffet.
And now I like to eat the whole fucking buffet because of these
Right.
fucking. All right. The other thing we always ask is what pisses you off? Like, what fucking makes you fucking crazy pissed off?
You mean other than trying to enter this building today?
I know,
I mean,
so
that's-
fucking annoying.
Well,
this
I told
building.
you about the people after the
Right.
memorial. That drove
Right.
me crazy.
Yeah, that's the worst.
But the
All
thing
about them.
in general is when somebody tries to put me to work for them.
Right.
That's the thing. That's sort of the general thing. And I'll tell you one, or between my mother and Dave, I have a giant reservoir for narcissism,
Right.
but it's not endless.
Right.
So and you also, if you're a narcissist, you have to be talented,
Right.
or you have to be smart,
Right.
and then then I'll go along,
Right.
then I'll I'll be the extra in your movie,
Right.
But sometimes people, it's just batting practice for them,
Right.
So years ago, I wrote for the New Yorker for a little while until they, got rid of their editor and put somebody in charge that totally free of the gift of irony. And
Yeah, exactly.
and so I wrote a piece called Jerry Springer's Voicemail, and this was at the height of Jerry.
Was this a Shouts and Murmurs?
Yeah, this was at the height of Jerry Springer's popularity,
Right.
and he went on Larry King when he was still alive, and he said to Larry. And he said to Larry, we get 5,000 calls a day of people that want to be on the show. So I thought, well, this will be a great premise.
Right.
Jerry Springer's Voicemail. And so I don't remember. One of them was, Jerry, do you still do makeovers? My son is a Nazi skinhead. I'd like you to turn him into a Republican congressman. He's a 46 Husky.
Yeah,
so it's like
hilarious.
that.
Yeah.
So now piece comes out. The New Yorker calls me. They say, there's a guy desperate to get in touch with you. Can we give him your home number? I say, yeah. A guy calls me, and he says, do you know me? I said, no, you called me. He said, I just read your piece in the New Yorker, and I noticed that you used the name Resnick, like James Resnick. And I said, yeah. He said, well, that's my father-in-law's name. I said, congratulations. I said, I like the name Resnick. What can I tell you? The guy says, no, wait. He said, the issue is dated March 4th. And that's my wife and my wedding anniversary. So I was wondering, you know, with mentioning my father-in-law and our anniversary, if you did this piece as kind of a tribute to me and my wife.
Oh my God!
And I say to him, listen, I don't know you. I've never met you. I like the name Resnick. So now the guy realizes that maybe he's been a little grandiose.
Right.
So the next thing he says is, so what, are you like a writer?
No way!
Yeah. And, you know, and I said, yeah, and you're going to hear a sound. It's going to sound like I'm hanging
Right.
up, but keep talking. But that, to me,
That
is
is
so
fucking-
egregious, you know.
Yeah.
Crazy.
What do you think about this Harvey Weinstein, like this?
Oh, I can't believe you're teeing this one up for me. I can't believe this. The sexual predator surprised me.
Right.
Because as I tweeted, I hope all these accusations of being a sexual predator don't diminish his reputation as a bullying scumbag. Because I got into it with him years ago.
Really?
Yeah, and Adrian was it's October.
Weinstein, sorry.
Man, where's this in the book?
October of 2000. Hillary is running for senator.
Right.
Bill is in his last 4 months in the White House. And they decide they're going to have a birthday party fundraiser at Roseland.
Right.
When it was still alive, Roseland. And so it happened to be
Yeah.
the dark week for our show, Conan, and Saturday Night Live. So they round us all up for free. And
my favorite.
there were a lot of, because let's face it, if we can pass on any practical advice,
Yeah.
if you're willing to work for free, you'll work for the rest of your life.
Right.
If you believe anything I've told you.
Yeah.
So now,
Oh my God.
there's a lot of writers, but the three main writers are Jonathan Groff, who was the head writer at Conan.
Right.
Tremendous. And Stilson and me.
Right.
And Stilson's doing remotes, and Jonathan is the real head writer,
Right.
and I'm running the monologue,
Right.
and maybe I wrote a sketch or whatever.
Right.
So they need a host. I say, let me get Nathan Lane.
Right.
So he's a friend. So I get Nathan. Yeah, So we write some jokes, and me and a few other guys. And Harvey is producing it with Jane Rosenthal, who's De Niro's partner,
Right.
Tribeca Films.
Yes.
And I'm sure she's a very talented, foreseeing gal.
Right.
But all I know about her is her coming up to everyone and going, there's food in the other room.
Right. right.
Which I guess
Right.
that's what a producer does.
Right.
There's food in the other room.
Yeah.
So the word comes back to me, call Harvey and run the monologue by him. Okay, it's fine. But we're all working for free, so
Right.
this is just a courtesy.
Right.
This is just batting practice. So I call Harvey, I start reading him the jokes. Now the first three jokes are about him being very powerful.
Right.
Can't stop laughing.
Right.
He loves it.
Right.
And now it's, okay, that's okay. No, now it starts. No, what do you mean? No, it's no, we're doing this.
Right.
And there were about 5 jokes that he objected to. And I said, sorry you feel that way, but, and if I was doing them, I might cut a couple.
Right.
But Nathan's doing it, and Nathan don't work for you, and we're all working for
Right.
free. And will you tell Nathan? And I said, okay, fine. I'll tell him. So I call Nathan, and I say, he didn't like 5 jokes. Well, fuck him.
Right.
We're doing them.
Right.
They're not paying us.
What do you remember the jokes?
Now wait, no,
Okay.
hang on.
Sorry.
I don't remember all 5.
Right.
But I remember 2. I'll tell you the one that he lost it over, and the one he wanted us to cut that Hillary. We're learning a lot about Hillary. That she, when she was born, she spent 9 months in her mother's womb, and then another 3 to establish residency. Right.
That's
So that's
funny.
a honey, right? So he, apparently it bad mouths her mother's uterus.
Oh yeah, because
Yes.
he's so
Right.
Yeah.
Pro that. So now I call Nathan, and he says, well, fuck, no, I don't care. We're doing them, this and that. And I said, fine, I'm with you. I'm with you all the way. So now we get to the gig, and we're backstage. Adrian comes with me, and Nathan pulls me aside, and they're all on prompter. And Nathan doesn't need, because nobody remembers stuff. He's got a photographic memory.
Right.
There's nobody like him.
He's so fucking talented.
There's nobody like him.
And the nicest
So
guy.
he says to me, let's cut these two because I don't care if I do them or not. But we're doing the other three. So now here comes Harvey, he swaggers in. And I said, we cut two, but we're doing these three, you know, and he's getting angry. And now it all centers on one. He's kind of given in to two of the three.
Right.
But he is holding firm on this joke, which I wrote, which was Mayor Giuliani couldn't be here tonight. He's downtown performing his one-man show, The Comb-Over Monologues.
And he's mad about that?
Yeah,
fucking hilarious.
because he needs Giuliani to approve. He's not gonna. He thinks it's gonna piss off. And it's
my
gonna be in the
God.
post. So I say this is a harmless joke.
Right.
We're not cutting it. He's screaming, and then he calls over Jim Naughton, who's
Right.
an actor who's directing the whole
Right.
thing. He said, "Jim Naughton, come on!" And I said, "Oh, this is a fixed fight."
Right.
He's bringing a bunny over here to say this. And Jim Naughton picks up the script. I don't think it's offensive. Fuck you. Fuck all of you. You're a piece of shit. Fuck you, Nathan. And now he sort of chest bumps Nathan and says,
way.
fuck you. It's not your fault. It's not my fault. You don't have a fucking film career. And I see Nathan just sort of sink down into a chair. Now it's like 10 minutes before the show. So now I come in and I get in Harvey's face. Adrian said, I couldn't believe it. And I said, back up. It's over. He's doing it. You don't have a fucking show without him. You know, fuck you. I'll get Billy D. Williams to, you know, or some guy like that.
Yeah.
Some guy. I'll get Bill Boggs.
Yeah.
Really, he's available. Bill Boggs. Yeah. Wow, what a break.
Jim Jensen.
Yeah. Jim Jensen was the best softball pitcher in the history of Central Park. In the history.
No,
and
really?
better drunk. I mean, he was a big shika.
Yeah.
So, shika.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
And I mean, and I back him off, and Nathan. Then I go to the teleprompter, and I put the three jokes back in the teleprompter.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
And Nathan does it. Everything kills, and Harvey comes up to me. Bill, what can I do? I said, Harvey, you don't have a fucking show without any of us. What's the matter with you? You can't fucking talk to people. They're working for free. You can't, so the whole thing, and they raise a record number of money. They, and Hillary wins easily against that hanging curveball Vic Lazio, wherever they tossed up, and they raise all this money, and everybody, and Cher was there, and Nathan had to vamp because she was running late, and Nathan was, and Cameron Diaz and Ben Affleck and everybody from Saturday Night Live, the whole thing. It's a great, Okay, so now the thing's over. Now, the reason why I told you, there were three primary writers on this show. There's Jonathan Groff, Jeff Stilson, and me. So, the show's over. Jonathan Groff gets a side gig at Miramax, some punch-up gig, like 50 G's.
Right. Wow.
Stilson gets a pitch meeting at Miramax.
Right.
And I think they optioned like an idea.
Right.
Oh my God.
And I
on this
got-
podcast.
got pasta in a minute.
Oh, that's.
I mean,
fucking
and
best.
it's like that scene in Scrooge,
Yeah.
towel. It's like,
Yeah. How the fuck could you do that to Nathan Lane?
Yeah.
Fuck him.
But Nathan got back at him.
yes,
Because
Nathan recently.
He talked about the New York, but it was that was in October. So I want to say it was either at the Academy Awards in March or the following year. I think it was that March.
Right.
Nathan is a presenter for animation because he was a voiceover in
Right.
something, whatever, one of the million things. And he got up, and the first line out of his mouth was, people always ask me when they find out I'm in animated films, they always ask me the same question. which one in Monsters Incorporated is Harvey and which one is Bob?
Wow.
And I turned to Adrian and I said, he got him.
That's fucking great.
Isn't that great?
That is fucking great. Good for him.
But
All right.
Incredible.
what time is
It's 5. I know. I could.
What
I could do
time
4
did I
more
come?
hours
That's what
with
I
you.
told you. I could be here for 7 hours
I
asking him
know.
stuff.
I fucking love you. You're the best.
It's so easy, though, because we know each other. We have
I know,
this.
but you're just the best storyteller.
Oh, that's very sweet.
You are.
That's
You are
very-
the
Everybody.
best. Yeah.
And again, I can't thank you enough. My entire career was based on doing The Late Show with David Letterman.
Yeah.
Oh, but you.
My
I mean,
entire career.
But it was so great.
Oh, thanks.
That was so great. It just took. I mean, look, you can be spiritual and you can say you did the show when you were supposed to do it.
Right.
You know, and I don't want to tell God his business.
Right.
But it was, I want to say 3
Right.
years later.
Yeah.
It worked. It worked out. My dad got to see it. It
Oh,
was
that's
Father's
so
Day,
great.
the first one.
Oh,
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
great.
And
My mother's dead.
I couldn't.
And my
Yeah,
father's
the
dead.
2-1
Right.
pitch.
Yeah.
Runners on the move, throw down, not in time.
Now, are you on Twitter or anything?
Yes, I am on Twitter.
Okay, so Bill Scheft,
At
SCHEFT.
At Twitter, that's it. I have my
yeah.
blog,
You have your new
Yeah.
podcast on
my
you?
new
Yeah, your
podcast,
podcast is
which will
coming out.
dropping one of these days.
You're the fucking. I can't.
And we only got to.
I could
know.
still go on.
So can I just? So, when I was writing, I wrote on 2 Academy Awards. I wrote on the ill-fated Oprah Academy
Yeah.
Awards, and then I wrote for Chris Rock. And Chris Rock hired a bunch of comics to write for him in 2005. Among them, Nick DiPaolo
Right.
and Richie Voss.
Right.
And as I've always said about Nick DiPaolo, if there
Right.
was a cul-de-sac
Yeah.
and there were 2 comedy clubs on either side of the cul-de-sac, and you put whoever you want to put in the one on the left, you
Right.
put Louis C.K. or
Right.
Jerry or anybody or Pryor, and you put Nick DiPaolo in the one on the right, I'm going to the one on the right.
Right.
Just because it's Nick, and you
Yeah,
know
yeah.
that there might be punches.
Right.
And so I'll tell you 2 stories from that. So me, Voss, and DiPaolo had come out from New York, so we didn't have a car, so we used to have to wait for rides.
Right.
So we're out in front of the hotel getting ready to go to a meeting, and Voss is wearing like a sleeveless
Right.
cut-off thing, and he's got a tattoo that says "Never again."
Yeah.
Right.
And DiPaolo said, "What, a club owner give you that after you headline?"
That's fucking great. That's fucking great.
Oh man.
Yeah. So that's all. That's all.
I don't know what to say. This is the best.
This
best
was
one.
long
Most fun.
overdue, but it was great. But I want to tell you how proud I am of you because
thank you.
well, and both of you are the best thing you can say to a comic is that you're doing exactly what you should be
Right.
doing. And I remember when I started catching, I'd seen all the A acts. I hadn't seen Glenn Hirsch, and I said to Adrian, who's Glenn Hirsch like? And she said, he's like Glenn Hirsch. And I said, what do you mean? She said, when you get good, you can't compare
Right.
yourself to anybody. It's
Right.
just you. It's just you up there, and people can cop your stuff,
right.
but nobody can do it like you can do it. So, that's so, and both of you are in that club. It's not
Thank
a big
you.
club.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
That's high compliment. I love
Yes.
Adrian. I love you
Yeah.
guys. So,
And you are like
royalty.
No.
you are.
Comedy
and
royalty.
you're there from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we were lucky that
Yeah.
we were at it when it really
Started
hit.
hitting. Yeah.
And we had Susie on the podcast, and Harvey Weinstein's name came up.
Right.
No.
Time of the fall, wrestling
Yeah.
fans, and
Yeah.
my co-host Susan Korn said to her, did you encounter any of that? And she said, I'm sure I did, but it was the Wild West. We didn't care. We just
Right.
wanted to get on stage. We were
Right.
being paid $6.
Right.
And the thing is, and this is a blanket statement, it's probably unfair, but every comic in New York when I was starting out wanted to be a comic.
Right.
And every comic in L.A. wanted to be something else.
Yes, absolutely.
And every comic was a comic because they had to be.
Right.
Not because it was a good idea,
Right.
and certainly not because it was lucrative.
Right.
So that was the thing.
That's true.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll say about comics is that if you're in an airport and you have a 3-hour layover, and like you're in DFW, you got a 3-hour layover, and you're sitting, and the stranger sits next to you, and he's a comic, and you're a comic, and you're strangers, you start talking, that 3 hours flies by. You ever work for this guy? What a scumbag.
Yeah.
You think he's a scumbag.
Yeah.
What about this guy?
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what other? I mean, there's and I'm gonna, I made fun of him before, but Jay, God bless him, when I finally got to talk to him, he said, listen, in the end, you got to do them when you do them.
Right.
In the end, we're all comics. There's not too many of us, and when one of us dies, it's a loss, and when one of us that's funny dies, it's a real loss. And that's what he was telling me about Adrian. And that was, was really true, because in the end, I haven't been on stage since 1993, since they cut me in for Hicks.
Right.
And I literally have not been on stage and done a stand-up set since then. But I always am happy when people introduce me as a comedian, because I'll always be a comic.
Right.
And
It's your roots.
Amazing.
All right. Well, I have to go do a set. Everyone, follow Bill. Leonard, anything? Leonard Marcus?
Yep, I have a podcast coming out called Four Corners. You can catch that on the Riotcast Network. I'm going to have Judy come on. I would love to have both of you.
You're cheating on me?
What? I can have my own show, can I, at some point?
Why not?
Thank you, Seth.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks, Seth.
Yeah.
Yeah, great to be here.
And
Good
thank you to Bill
laugher.
I
He
know.
laughs.
He's great.
How about how he laughs?
And he's
funny.
smart.
It's funny. I laugh when it's funny.
Yeah, whatever. Thank you
Also,
all for
I
listening.
I'm sure you're a wonderful father.
And as we always say, so long!
Don't forget to subscribe to Kill Me Now on iTunes and leave us a great review. Or just go fuck yourself.
And everything was wonderful. I'll see you soon. Thank you for the visit. So long.